In 1350, what we know as the idyllic French countryside was a living hell. For more than 15 years, the people had suffered at the hands of English invaders. Little did they know that this war would last for another 100 years. But through this crucible of fighting, famine, and plague, there would emerge the modern nation of France. England's King, Edward III, looked jealously across the English Channel. Wanting France for his own, he had added the fleur-de-lis, the symbol of France, to his own royal standard. This was an all-out declaration of war. And in 1337, he invaded. But France already had a king, Philippe VI. As the English burned their way across the land, Philippe's army and his legendary knights marched to meet them and came face to face with the English longbow. A simple weapon, but the most devastating the knights had ever faced. The heroes of France fell to storms of English arrows. The war engulfed the French countryside. By 1351, the conflict was focused on Brittany. One fight stands out as a spectacular display of chivalry and a symbol of the wider conflict between the two enemy nations. The combat of the 30 is still commemorated here in Brittany. It was a dispute between two local families. Supported by the opposing sides in the war, the French and English commanders decided to settle it through a trial of knightly combat. Each side would choose 30 champions to fight on neutral ground. France prepared to defend itself against England's finest. Intent on ending the suffering of the French peasantry, Sir Jean de Beaumanoir sent a challenge to the English commander. 30 champions on each side would compete in a tournament for final claim to Brittany. With the battleground of the halfway oak agreed upon, Sir Jean set out to gather support from local knights. As a knight himself, Sir Jean followed the strict rules of chivalry and was expected to protect the local peasantry and ensure peace.
Incontinent.
Place, veci comandement, mitzvos donc, en la voie.
Most medieval tournaments were friendly in nature, held for sport and glory, but the combat of the 30 was arranged between opponents mired in war. English raids had torn through the countryside of Brittany and brought great hardship to the people. Sir Jean spotted an English raiding party attacking a nearby farmstead. the French knights defeated the English raiders, and Sir Guy de Rochefort joined Sir Jean's party.
J'obtempère à Oxabitz.
Soyez avant, compagnon.
Sir Jean's search next brought him to Sir Geoffroy de Bois, whose squires were contending with a detachment of English longbowmen. The knights would use the great speed of their war horses to charge the archers and overwhelm them. The English longbowmen fell, but the French knights knew the enemy would attempt to retake the hilltop fortification and steeled themselves for further attacks. With Sir Geoffroy by his side, Sir Jean had secured the outpost.
Pied-ci, pied là. Et compresse. Comme vos blessed. Mettons nos en la voie.
Looking to secure his honor, a young knight held his ground on a bridge in Sir Jean's path. Honorably conceding defeat in the duel, Sir Yves Charel joined the cause.
Regnez vos armes. Oyez. Pied-ci, pied là. Et compresse. Mettons nos en la voie.
Sir Jean entered the staging area for the tournament, where he prepared to choose which knights would join him in battle. Each knight would be accompanied by his squires, young nobles in training to become knights themselves.
Obéir, c'est vertu. Obéir. Mon arway mène avec moi. Donnez-moi vos orvos.
Bête! Bête!
Honor. Mon destrier remagne.
Sir Jean had selected his champions. As the sun rose, the two sides entered the arena, ready for the first round of combat. With both sides bloodied and bruised, the fighters called for a break, allowing the champions respite to bandage their wounds.
Place, veci commandement. Page, veci commandement. Metz vos donc, en avoué.
Refreshed and reinvigorated, the French knights returned to the arena for another round of combat. The combat of the 30 was about to decide which nation would control the Duchy of Brittany. Triumphant, Sir Jean de Beaumanoir and his loyal knights claimed victory. The combat of the 30 had decided control of Brittany in favor of the French. Little did the two sides know, this was just the beginning of a bitter war that would outlive them all. In the 100 Years' War, the English used a terror tactic, a raid through enemy territory, intended to intimidate and provoke the French into battle. It was called Chevauchee. The principal weapon for Chevauchee was fire. And one of the ways it was delivered was with incendiary arrows.
Challenge with incendiary arrows? Keeping them alight.
One type of incendiary arrow was fueled with gunpowder.
We've got charcoal, we've got sulfur, and we've got saltpeter. Saltpeter is the main ingredient. The more oxygen you put into it, the hotter it burns. Of course, when it's on an arrow, when it's being shot, you've got a turbocharged airstream.
The chemicals are bound together with brandy, left to dry, and poured into a linen bag. The extra long arrowhead is inserted into the bag and then tied off to secure it. It is then sealed by dipping it into boiling tree resin. This resin, which itself is highly flammable, provides a waterproof casing. It also shields the burning gunpowder, so the wind doesn't put it out in flight.
Now that looks deadly, and I really want to shoot it.
The art to shooting an incendiary arrow is timing. Too early, and it will go out. Too late, it will spit at you like a dragon.
That was just evil. That was great.
The word Chevauchee means horse raid, and it was mobile light horsemen who spearheaded the attacks. They took gold and silver from the churches, valuables from wealthy citizens, and as much food and drink as they could find from anyone. A Chevauchee was scorched earth warfare to create discontent amongst the enemy's subjects, perhaps even to get them to turn against their king. An army on campaign needed a decisive battle, and a Chevauchee was intended to taunt the enemy to come out and fight. After victory at the Combat of the 30, the French faced devastating raids from England's Black Prince. But France's King John II was closing in. Jean finally caught the English near the city of Poitiers in September 1356. The French army outnumbered the English by thousands. King Jean himself joined the fight, but what seemed a certain victory for France soon turned into a nightmare. The English longbow devastated the mighty French army. An endless hail of arrows gutted the main French force. Then the English captured King Jean. The fight was over. The Battle of Poitiers was another catastrophic defeat for the French. The English had destroyed most of France's nobility in a single day. Now they turned their attention towards taking the French capital, Paris. The invaders marched unopposed towards Paris. The remains of some of the medieval walls of Paris still stand today. As the English army approached, the terrified locals sought shelter behind these defenses. Could France's capital withstand the full might of the Black Prince's army? The English Black Prince had raided the French countryside without mercy, and now his army had come for the capital. With the English on their doorstep, it fell to the French army and the people of Paris to defend the walls of their proud city. Hoping to avoid open battle, the French began fortifying the city, manning the walls and calling every available soldier to his post.
Que faut-il donc besoigner? Il trahit sens nul arrest. Oh, me faut trahir?
As the French hastened their preparations, several detachments of English soldiers were spotted closing in on the city.
Oil, messieurs des mouets. Attendez les commandements, madame. Besoigne à faire? Baillez moins besoin. Que faut-il donc besoigner?
Un besoigne. La cette mouille exploitée.
Oyez les ordonnances pour vous servir.
Oyez tout le monde. Marche arrière, mouette restos.
Oil, messieurs des mouets. Reste pour la besoigne, Manance. Oui, besoigne nous attendent, Manance. Avec rien.
Que faut-il donc?
Oyez tout le monde. Comme un volet.
Compagnons, chessmets vos obelest au col.
The English showed no mercy, burning their way to Paris via 3 routes, each of which was home to villages and farms that supplied the capital.
Oi, messieurs des
Oh, me-
besoigne à faire.
En besoin.
Voyez zou.
Voyez moins besoin.
Un besoin. Messieurs.
Alors, marchiez rien.
Voyez besogne à faire.
Que faut-il donc besoin? Un besoin. Que faut-il donc? Voyez moins besoin.
Advertance à votre commandement. Si, comme vous.
Oh, me faut. Oil, messieurs des mouets.
Voyez les ordonnances pour vous servir.
Un besoin. Voyez moins besoin.
Oh, me faut travail. Messieurs des mouets.
Oyez les ordonnances à votre commandement. Oyez tout le monde.
Manance, au constant. Hostia Lores. Oyez les ordonnances. Lors dévance nos salaires. Manuel. Besoigne à faire. Ardu besoigne en grande terre. Baillets moué bé.
Advertance, laissez moi exploiter. En du besoin. Voyez moins besoin. Je veux semaine merde.
Que faut-il donc? Sois sans fouet.
Ça espelle.
Lors bâti, je s'estuie.
Bonne besoin d'être. Besoin d'y faire.
As the French continued to rally their army, the English took the last of the surrounding villages and had almost encircled Paris.
Archer, voyez du commandement. On veut guerper, Archer. En besoin.
Advertance, tout le monde. Vais à la mine.
With the countryside in flames and the English at the city gates, the French army steeled themselves for battle. Now came the capital's true test, with the mighty walls of Paris hold against a fearsome English siege.
Besoigne à faire. Si vais exploiteur. Cuidaves fouiller.
The Parisian Guard raised the alarm as the English began their first assault on the city walls.
Oh, me faut trahir. Que faut-il donc besoigner? Commence à...
Oh, me fa un trai. Guida Vespuia.
Alors, Chevauchee, si obéis à votre commandement.
Mon arc est Messieurs des mouets. Guida Vespuia.
Acest pe vos, archer!
Au Chivalry.
Acest pe vos, demeurez, points la Vas-y, pour l'adversaire.
Les chevaucheurs qui coincent le Norway.
Mon arc est mon Versailles.
The French army fought valiantly, repelling the first English attack.
Vaiens mue besoin.
Oh yes, à votre commandement.
Although the walls of Paris had been breached, the French could still hold the city, so long as its mighty landmarks did not fall.
Manans, sì, come volete.
Compagnon, veille les noix. Chacune, mettons nos en la bouée.
Archers, prenez vos arcs. Archers, j'obtempère.
Compagnon, prêt-vous d'avance, jouez après. Oui, sous les yeux, commandez-moi. Voilà de votre plaisir. Il n'y faut que la vie, j'obtempère à vos appuis.
Archers, prenez vos arcs.
Les chevaucheurs sont prêts. Compagnon, prêts pour paradis. Jetsmets vos habillement, au balestier.
Archers, prenez vos arcs. Archers, en la voie. On déguerpit, archers. Si comme le volet. Archers, archers. Oyez le commandement. Archers, obéissez au commandement. Le vers archers. Les commandes demeurez au point de stade. Le vers archers.
Chacune en sa pleine danse. Non, West compagnon, prêt pour votre
Archers, archers. Chacun de ces personnes. Archers, les commandements.
Jetsmets avance au balestier. Sauveuse en honneur.
Archers, si, comme le volet. Cette mettre-ci comme le volet. Le ferai-je donc?
Les Jetstarm, envoyez vers notre porte. À l'arson, chevalier. Les chevaucheurs obéissent à votre commandement.
Archers, oyez le commandement. Obéissez au commandement. Archers, c'est fort, archers.
Vestiaire de mouet.
Messieurs des mouets. Chevalier Bastille.
The French defense of their capital held firm, wearing down the English invaders one by one.
obéissent.
Chevaucheur,
Le gendarme faut le archère.
Compagnon, votre jetzt pose.
compagnon Hardy.
C'est là.
Quel est de votre plaisir? Bref, chasse que j'en te fais.
Compagnon, avertissez votre courage.
Quel bandit donc.
Besoin après. Advertance, tout le monde. Veille à la mine.
Besoin à faire. Il traîne. Tu la restes. M de douane. Immonde attendre vos ordonnances. Rasen stress tous. Lion de Jean, siège à 6. Reste pour la besogne, Los bâtiments ordonnance. Il note Archer. Prenez tir. Le ferai-je donc? Archer. Archer fait bon. Archer. Archer. Antonel s'assiste.
Oyez les ordonnances.
Leurs bâtis. Archer. Prenez vos armes. Entrez Guerpit. Archer. Archer fait bon. Architecte, votre message. Archer.
Tiens à l'oreille.
Archer, si, comme le volet. Archer, le ferai-je donc?
Jetsdown, boss.
Archer,
Ouais, soon. Chacune en sa place. Moult avance, fouet à trait.
Oil, mais fier de moi. Si veg.
Archer,
Ambulance, s'il vous plaît.
Archer, essayez de la ordonnance. Et urgence de siège à 6. Abandonne. Archer, c'est bon, sortez de paix.
Compagnon, reste pour la
Que parti donc de soigner? Besoin après.
Archer, Archer. Urgence de siège à 6. Allez dessus.
Chevalier,
On me fait au trail.
Advertance seulement. Vamos a ver mestier de bueyes. Todos ya Laurets.
Mon arc est preste. Archer! Archer! Oui. Advisez votre message. Archer! Obéis au commandement! Archer! 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 Prenez vos axes. Les chevaux, dicte-moi mon père. On te fait Archer! Chasse que essayez de leur avoir.
On me fait au trail. Je vais embariller ce manuel.
Archer! Les commandements viennent! Oui, dirigez!
dos hommes on order redets et von Chevauchee et Chivalry.
L'ennemi m'attaque! Reste porte!
The enemy grew ever more desperate as their ranks thinned and their hopes of victory faded.
Compagnons, envoyez vers notre porte! Quel est de votre plaisir?
Archers, obéis au commandement. Chef Medford, Archers, ne demeurez point
Je somme aussi comme vos volrez.
une note archi! Archers, oyez le commandement!
Chevalier.
Archers, les commandements j'obtempère.
White commands to this enemy's Chivalry. Il continue. C'est le temps de frontière, mes seigneurs. Avant.
Archers! Archers!
Compagnons, prête-vous.
Bayet moué bezouigne.
Somos ridets et Il continue. Compagnons. Je suis votre serveur. Forcez comme vos volrez. Avant, compagnons.
Chef Medford, Archers!
Somos outnumbered. Je suis votre serveur. Chevalier.
Archers! Les commandements de guerre!
Chasse qui monte!
Chef Medford, j'obtempère!
Mestière de bois.
Chef Medford, Archers!
C'est pas qui donc besoigné. Ouais, qui va
Reste tous sommes. Chevalier. Le temps
On me parle.
Archers!
le temps d'aventure.
Archers! Si, comme le relais! Chasse qu'une seigneur doit valoir. Ne demeure Archers! Visez notre Versailles! Tire! Archers! Chasse qu'un cesse Versailles! Archers! Archers Medford! Archers!
Defeated and demoralized by the strength of the French defense, the Black Prince's army abandoned their siege of the capital. Paris celebrated victory, but this was not the last test the French would face in their struggle to win the war. The battlefields of the 100 Years' War were full of danger. To defend against these weapons, a new type of armor was developed: plate armor.
Plate armor clad the knight in an articulating exoskeleton of hardened steel. A hard outer shell that still flexes and moves with the body.
It provided impressive protection and was an extraordinary technological achievement.
Now, one of the ways that armor gets its strength is through shape. Both of these pieces are made out the exact same thickness as steel, but I can show you there's one stronger than the other. Here's the one with no shape. You see it buckles immediately. If I swap it for one that's been forged to have strength and shape, you can see it's much stronger. It's going nowhere.
It wasn't just the shape that gave it strength. It was also how the metal was treated by the armorer.
Now, the benefits of using heat is it obviously makes the piece more plastic, more ductile, lets me shape it. But the fuel also adds layers of carbon into the outer surface. This helps me increase the hardness and strength of the material.
The art of the armorer was being able to judge the temperature of the metal by eye, managing the heat to create resilience in the metal. The combination of heat-treated metal and rigid shapes meant that armor didn't need to be so thick and heavy, making it much easier to fight in. But good quality plate armor did have its downside. It was very expensive.
Now, not everyone could afford full steel plate armor. For the common man, there is the brigandine. Now, these are made up of overlapping steel plates that are then riveted through a textile outer. This gives you a much bigger range of movement, but is limited and is not as strong as a full steel breastplate. That said, it is much cheaper and much easier to maintain.
At its best, the armored knight was invincible. But armor didn't just provide defense. It was also a weapon and an expression of a knight's power and prestige. Armor transformed its wearer into a work of art.